One of the things that was going on when I was chief of disguise was an enormous research program into the new advanced disguise system. It was basically the masks that everybody always wondered if we used masks, and this was the beginning. This is a series of photographs of when I met George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office and revealed to him that I was briefing him wearing a mask. When you go to disguise a person, the general idea is that you're going to meet with someone in this disguise, and they're going to write a memo of the person that they just met with. We want every item in that memo that describes you to be wrong. If we're looking at a man and we want to change the way he looks, start at the top, and the first thing that comes up is hair. What's he got, and what do you want to do with it? If he has curly hair, you want to go straight. If he has dark hair, you might want to go light. If he's young, you might want to throw in some gray. If he's old, you might want to cover up the gray. Do you present with facial hair? If you don't, maybe we're going to give you some. If you're going to be somewhere for a while, maybe we're going to have you grow some. We have made prostheses on occasion. You could actually change cheekbones. You can add something here. You can add a forehead. You can do a nose. We can do what we call dental facades. We can change actually the shape of your face with the right dental facade. This piece is called a plumper because it increases the plumpness of your gums. And when it does that, it changes the profile of your face. The last thing is artificial palates. We take an impression of the top of your mouth. They can change your enunciation. They can cause a slight lisp. It's a little bit different with everybody who wears one, but if it's enough, it's very useful. We very often discover that older looking men are considered less threatening than younger looking men, so we like to age a person. With women, you have a broader range of what you can do. You also have one extra step that you could turn a woman into a man. I would mention that it's almost impossible to turn a man into a woman. What we do is always additive. We can make you taller, we can make you heavier, we can make you older. We can't go the other direction. You want to be the person that gets on the elevator and then gets off, and nobody really remembers that you were even there. That is a design goal at the disguise labs at CIA. Changing the way that you walk requires some amendment to what you're doing. You're going to need a physical apparatus to make you walk differently. You can't possibly say, okay, now I'm going to limp. To change my walk, I put a little piece of gravel in my shoe. Just a little thing that pinches my toe, and it changes my walk whether I want to or not. You can put a bandage around a knee, something that restricts you will change your walk.
Well, we saw a speech from Biden, and we saw him get off the plane, going to Washington, so that means he's alive, right? Also, I want to get into the basic solution that we've been talking about forever. No matter what happens in any of this madness that's going on right now, the one thing that doesn't change is the overall and only solution to get back the republic. Let's get into it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Has the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another live episode Thursday night. So, I first want to start off by saying I have figured out the chat for absolutely every platform. So regardless of where you comment from, whether you're watching on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, X, I will be able to see your comments here. I can highlight them and respond to them. So I definitely want to know, number one, where everybody watches from, and number two, any comments you have, regarding what the topics are. As always, no matter what I'm talking about, if you have questions regarding Article 5, or if you've brought a friend in so that you can ask your questions live, by all means, ask them. I will stop what I'm doing, no matter what I'm talking about, to go ahead and address those questions. And I am today going to be talking a little bit about Article 5 on the second half of the broadcast. I want to start off the broadcast as soon as I make sure I let you know that I need you to click the follow, leave a comment, click like, all the clicks that you got to do to help the free stuff, the free easy things that you can do to help get this channel some more exposure and to help me out. It costs you nothing. And frankly, I left the links in all the descriptions. If you could make it an effort to hook it up on the Rumble and Twitter broadcasts, or on those, my Twitter follow and the Rumble follow, at least one of those two to help me out, because my biggest following is on Facebook right now. That's just they were the last ones to catch on to the fact that I do patriotic content and civics and whatnot, and it's not necessarily on message. So they were the last one to catch on. So they allowed me, in a matter of 2 to 3 months, just to give you an idea of the hunger that there is for this information, to grow to about 18,000 followers, and then they caught on. And now I've been playing games with them ever since. However, I have been able, many of you, fortunately, have checked out the page or know that I'm on Thursday nights. So I try to keep that consistent so that we don't break the chain there. But I am trying to grow the following on Twitter, is the newest one. Rumble, of course, as well. But Twitter in particular, because I'm getting these things off the ground on a platform. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It's like starting all over again. So I've been at it on Twitter for months. I'm approaching 300. You guys can help me cross that plateau right on this episode, just by going over and giving me a follow. And I'll follow you back, because I love to see what my peeps have to say. So I wanted to get into the first portion of this broadcast by kind of getting into this Biden thing and the bizarre nature of how it all went down. So I jumped on Sunday to talk about, when it broke that he was going to be dropping out of the race, but I didn't really wrap my head. I guess I didn't have these extra days to realize, because at the time I was like, looking at the letter, saying same thing everyone else is saying. I'm like, this doesn't look like official White House, letterhead. The signature I didn't catch on to right away, but when other people brought it up, I compared it myself and realized it is a little bit different. And the weird stuff started there, right? And then we went day after day without really seeing the guy. And then there was this weird phone call that he had with Kamala Harris while she was on the podium. It just sounded recorded, and like there was a long pause, and then like an irregular pause. And then when he finally did speak again, Kamala was like, "I knew you were still there." And I'm like the whole thing was just poorly acted and didn't seem right. So, and I kept asking myself, I'm like, all right, has anybody actually seen this guy? And then they're like, oh, well, he's going to be doing a broadcast on Wednesday at 8:00. I'm like, is that a live broadcast in front of people, or is that a generic Oval Office speech? Because if it's an Oval Office speech, I'm not sold. And these are legitimate questions. I don't wish any ill will on this man, by the way. I don't. I posted to Facebook that, I was concerned, actually, because just like we're saying, where we get gross or we find it repulsive that, people are saying, oh, he shouldn't have missed when they shot at President Trump. It's the same thing, vice versa. I don't want to see the guy murdered, right? I mean, he doesn't have much, he probably didn't have all that much time left anyway, but he's got more than a few weeks in him. And the fact that, if they announce his passing in the coming weeks, my assumption, and we haven't seen him live or speaking publicly or anything like that, and they just announced that he's passed away, I'm absolutely going to call BS on it. Absolutely. They need to get this guy on a podium. They need to clear this up and put it to bed. But this is where these things stem from, right? People, oh, it's just a conspiracy. Really? Is it? Like the guy is not. Hold on. It says locked by broad. It says Twitter won't let him comment. Hold on a second here, folks. Frickin' Twitter. Every time I think I got it figured out, I'm like, I was able to do it. So why aren't you able to do it? Hold on. All right, it says Twitter won't let me comment. Says it's locked by the broadcaster. So if anyone else is having that trouble, I guess you'd have to go to another platform. But I appreciate that insight. I will take a look. I was all proud of myself for having gotten Twitter on board, and then I get that. I'm locked by the broadcaster. And you can see, just if you could tell me, Robert, if you could see my stuff on there, all platforms are set for interactive chat. You may have to click through and actually go to the live stream, not just comment on my feed. So if you could try that, because I just typed in there, but I'm the broadcaster. So if it says I locked it, then I don't know exactly how to unlock that. Thought I put it in. If that's the case, then I apologize, and we'll go one more week where the one channel that I'm trying to promote and bring forward is not working correctly with me. So I hope that's fixable. But so try if you're on Twitter, and I don't get that many views on Twitter yet. I got 11 so far. I don't know if they're all active, but if you guys could take a shot and try it, I know that I won't know if you can't get in, but if it's not too much to try a different platform like Rumble or Facebook or YouTube, just give me the heads up there, because it shows when I do it. Like when I erased all of my tests, so I don't know. But anyway, thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. I don't know. It's always something with these live broadcasts, and when you're producing yourself, you don't want to take too much time to correct stuff in the middle of the broadcast, because that ain't why people are watching, right? But I know Rumble and the rest, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, were definitely working. Twitter, there's some new challenge now where there must be an option to unlock that. I don't know where it is in the studio. Because if you don't know, I'm working out of OBS Studio, and then there's another studio for each one of the streaming platforms, which normally the big guys like Bongino and those guys, they can manage both. They got someone there managing both at the same, but not me. I'm not that cool yet. So it is what it is. But anyway, with respect to Biden, the creepy stuff just keeps happening. So we got his brother, right? And I'll give you this clip that I took of the news reading off his brother's comment, which just adds more fuel to the question 5.
Now hearing for the first time from a member of President Biden's family about this decision. CBS News had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's 2 younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a..."
Who says that? Who says whatever time we have left? Now, you could argue that, well, his brother knows that, he's got dementia and, he just wants to, enjoy the time they have left. But, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I look at it like, if he's saying whatever time he has left, I think he knows, what many of us suspect is that, that it ain't looking good. Now, that's one piece, right? But then you've got, where did we see him? So we saw him, the 2 times we saw him, really. I mean, he did the Oval Office address, but the idea that could have been pre-recorded is completely possible. So that doesn't quell the specific question of, is Joe Biden still alive? And so we see him getting on and off a plane, from a distance, really loud. Went ahead with the jet engines and everything. He tried to scream something back to somebody at one point, but it wasn't even legible. So, it brings me to my next point, which may be a rabbit hole, maybe not. We'll see, right? I'd love to know what you guys think about this, but like the CIA has been doing this for a long time with respect to disguises. And I was shocked to find out that there's actually a position in the CIA called the Director of Disguise, which I was just like, of course there is. Like, I didn't know, right? But when I heard it, I was like, of course there is. Like, that's just so right in line with what you would expect from the CIA, right? And so I pulled a clip explaining some of this and giving you an idea of just how convincing they were, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They've been doing this for 40 years, okay? Now, we've all seen the stuff that we're allowed to use, right? Like those rubber, synthetic masks that they put on. And you could kind of tell it's a mask, but it looks, if you were going to rob a bank or do something where, you're going to get caught on CCTV, they can be incredibly convincing. If you're going to, have a conversation with me, or if I came on here with one of them and said, George isn't here today and I'm filling in, you would probably see the ones that we're allowed to use. But when a professional makeup artist gets involved, and it's not just a rubber mask over your head, but it's a rubber mask with hand painting and details and all kinds of stuff like that, even then, I think if you were close enough, you should be able to tell. But I don't know, maybe they do have the ability to
now hearing for the first time from a member of President Biden's family.
All right, so I took a clip just to give an idea and listen to this woman speak about the type of stuff that they do. That's 100% real. It's not conspiracy theory. And they've used it in ops regularly. Like, it's not just Hollywood does it and it's possible. It's that the CIA has a director of disguise who uses this technology and these artists and chemists and all these other people to put these types of things together. It would not, since the only images we saw of him was getting on and off a plane, clearly, I 100% believe that they could have mimicked that with him getting on and off a plane like that and convinced the world that it was him. Like, that's absolutely 100% fact. Did they? I don't know. But I would like to, and I'm willing to eat crow if they turn around and say, you know what? Here he is, and shaking hands with the press, and everybody meets him, and blah, blah, because all these body double things they've been talking about with him, like I don't go down those roads, but a mask type of thing, yeah, I would buy that. I don't think they're above that, and I definitely think the amount of shady crap that they've done and what's possible, it's absolutely possible. So here she is.
One of the things that was going on when I was chief of disguise was an enormous research program into the new advanced disguise system. It was basically the masks that everybody always wondered if we used masks, and this was the beginning. This is a series of photographs of when I met George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office and revealed to him that I was briefing him wearing a mask.
So I didn't mention that part, which is 100% true. She was convincing enough with the mask that she wore into that office that the president of the United States, in this case it was George Bush Sr., was talking to her about masks and different disguise technology and did not know she was wearing a mask. Like, she revealed it in the meeting, which must have blown him away. But that's an example which she's clearly telling you right now. And this wasn't, she didn't just come out with this to prove, that Biden is fake, that he's really, it's not like that. This was just something where she was briefing the president on disguises and CIA capabilities and did this as an example for showmanship during that process, which is amazing that it was that good, that she could be in a meeting with him. Like I was just saying, from a distance, yeah, they absolutely could convince. This woman convinced the president of the United States she was not herself live, and was telling the story about it some 5 years ago in an interview. She wasn't telling the story to make a conspiracy case. She was just telling the story like, hey, this is how cool we are, right? It was just a cool interview that was done with her to kind of be like, look at what we're capable of, right? And so it is 100% possible.
When you go to disguise a person, the general idea is that you're going to meet with someone in this disguise, and they're going to write a memo of the person that they just met with. We want every item in that memo that describes you to be wrong. If we're looking at a man and we want to change the way he looks, start at the top, and the first thing that comes up is hair. What's he got, and what do you want to do with it? If he has curly hair, you want to go straight. If he has dark hair, you might want to go light. If he's young, you might want to throw in some gray. If he's old, you might want to cover up the gray. Do you present with facial hair? If you don't, maybe we're going to give you some. If you're going to be somewhere for a while, maybe we're going to have you grow some. We have made prostheses on occasion. You could actually change cheekbones. You can add something here. You can add a forehead. You can do a nose. We could do what we call dental facades. We can change actually the shape of your face with the right dental facade. This piece is called a plumper because it increases the plumpness of your gums. And when it does that, it changes the profile of your face. The last thing is artificial palates. We take an impression of the top of your mouth. They can change your enunciation. They can cause a slight lisp. It's a little bit different with everybody who wears one, but if it's enough, it's very useful. We very often discover that older looking men are considered less threatening than younger looking men, so we like to age a person. With women, you have a broader range of what you can do. You also have one extra step. You could turn a woman into a man. I would mention that it's almost impossible to turn a man into a woman. What we do is always additive. We can make you taller, we can make you heavier, we can make you...
Now I want to stop this right here, and I just want to make mention. I don't know how many of you had gone down the Q rabbit hole, or how far down you went if you did before hopefully realizing that it was probably a psyop and not. But they have a guy that, because one of the places where it goes off the rails, in my opinion, among others, is the JFK Jr. from the future, all this stuff, and that they keep saying they see this guy, and the guy shows up at all these different, events and whatever, and they're claiming that it's just an older version of JFK Jr. And when I was watching this video, like, this particular disguise looks exactly like that dude. I wish I had a photo of it that I could put on. In fact, I'm going to play the rest of this and I'm going to look for one.
Older. We can't go the other direction. You want to be the person that gets on the elevator and then gets off, and nobody really remembers that you were even there. That is a design goal at the disguise labs at CIA. Changing the way that you walk requires some amendment to what you're doing. You're going to need a physical apparatus to make you walk differently. You can't possibly say, okay, now I'm going to limp. To change my walk, I put a little piece of gravel in my shoe. Just a little thing that pinches my toe. And it changes my walk whether I want to or not. You can put a bandage around a knee. Something that restricts you will change your walk.
All right, so I was able to grab a quick image comparison for that guy. I'm going to try and see if I can make this work, because it freaked me out when I saw it. This is the dude right here. This is the dude that the QAnon people were saying is JFK Jr. now, right? So let's look at him. Let's leave him up here, and let me play this again and try and get to that
One of the
guy.
things that was...
And there's the guy.
Go the other direction. You want to be the person.
I mean, does that not look does that not look eerily similar to that dude? So so let me send a crap load of people down another rabbit hole with that one. Because that's crazy. When I saw it, the first thing I thought of was that dude.
Go the other direction.
It was him.
You want to be the person.
So, but anyway, she makes the point, though, that it's completely plausible to pull that off. It's not something, that I think you could do, You know, if he comes out live and starts talking to the press and, you know, shaking hands, and even though she was able to convince, I feel like eventually if she had spoken to him long enough, it would have been revealed. Like, I don't think you could hold an entire press conference in that type of getup without it eventually looking like a getup. And the risk of something going wrong there would be brutal. But to have him just walk up plane steps and walk down plane steps and, you know, that kind of stuff, I think, yeah, absolutely they could do that if needed. But let's assume that this is all crazy talk and that he's alive. The question becomes, how long does he have left? Now, Alex Jones, I don't know if you guys saw the broadcast that I did right after the assassination, but I played a clip of Alex Jones, which I probably still have.
One of the things that was going on when I was chief of disguise was an enormous research program into the new advanced disguise system. It was basically the masks that everybody always wondered if we used masks, and this was the beginning. This is a series of photographs of when I met George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office.
To show, let me see if I have Alex here. So right in the beginning of what Alex Jones said, he mentions something that at the time when I commented on it, I was like, I don't know where he's going with that, but listen.
Listen to me very carefully. I have told you for months on air they're going to try to kill Trump. And when they try to kill Trump, they're going to go after everybody else that is his top supporters. And they also will try to kill Biden and blame it on a Trump supporter.
All right, so he came right out with that, right? Now, if you're not familiar with Alex Jones, he tends to have his head wrapped around the deep state in a way that really is not comparable to anyone else. No one else has nailed things the way that this man nails things. They just don't. And so, you know, in fact, you know, from 9/11 to Ukraine, to the COVID virus, to the war in Iraq, like he's been doing this for so long, where he's been so far ahead of the curve, like, and he says stuff like that, and I'm like, really? Do they even need to kill Biden? Like, what would be even the point of that? But then, like, as I think about it, I'm like, all right, they don't want Biden in office, and if Biden is sitting there doing what he's doing and saying, I ain't leaving, like, they may have lost control of the dude. And I think that that's very possible, that they may have just lost control of this guy, and his dementia is making that even worse because he's just not believing, right? Like Barack himself may come up to him and be like, look, you need to drop out. And an hour later, he forgets that Barack came up to him and told him to drop out and is back to, I'm not leaving, I'm the president, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, it may have gotten to that point where, you know, this man speaks publicly, they're all over there on the narrative that he's gone, and then he jumps out and goes, hell no, I ain't going anywhere, and there may not have been another alternative. Because let's face it, right? I mean, clear, and even to the point of Trump assassination attempt, I mean, if you look at the chain of events, the amount of coincidences that you're forced to believe in are so many that it literally makes no sense. Like to not believe, right, that this was a hit. Like both of these, you know, number one, you're looking. They try everything they can to get rid of President Trump. Everything they have in their playbook. They went to sexual harassment. His poll numbers went up. They went to racism. His poll numbers went up. They tried to bring up all these trumped up charges, no pun intended. His poll numbers went up. They actually found a judge leftist enough, Marxist enough to convict him on these ridiculous charges. His poll numbers still went up. They're completely out of options. And Tucker had mentioned himself, you know, before they even got the conviction, Tucker mentioned himself, like, they have nothing left. They're going to have to assassinate him. And I think when Tucker said that, some people were wigged out by it, but most of us were like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Because they've got nothing, like, if he wins, they're done. They're all going to jail for life. The arrests are going to come raining down. It's going to be chaos. They're going to be selling each other out. It's going to be nuts. And none of them know who's going to come out of it, you know, that not being charged with things like treason and other, like, death penalty type stuff. And so getting caught doing stuff like this, like, you can only kill someone once. So, like, getting caught doing stuff like this when you know the alternative is likely, you know, a treason charge or something similar, it's worth the risk, right? So they take that risk and they fail. And then upon failing, almost immediately, I mean, we had 1 week after, right? Or a week and a half after, all of a sudden Biden drops out of the race. So the first plan was to kill Trump, get him out of there, and then try to run Biden against whoever else there is, because they know he can't beat Trump. And they fail at that. They can't kill Trump. So now they got to get rid of Biden. So now you start seeing all this stuff happening to Biden. Like to me, it's so obvious how this is playing out. I should have worn my "Once You See, You Can't Unsee" shirt. These shirts, by the way, including Make Civics Great Again, Social Studies Sucks. These are all available on my website through my Etsy store. There's a link on the front page of my website. But once you see, you see things like BlackRock and Disney and what's happening in our education system and China's involvement, the 100-Year War. Like, once you understand all these things in play, right? Soviet ideological subversion, Yuri Bezmenov. Once you understand what's actually been going on for the past 60 to 70 years, this stuff becomes obvious. And I think that's why Alex Jones, when you listen to him talk about how he's been so accurate at stuff like this, like he'll tell you, he humbles himself on it and is like, look, I'm just reading. He's like, I've just buried myself in the reading. He's like, and I live this and I know. He's like, I see this stuff. He's like, once you start seeing it, things start to, the predictions start to be, they're not predictions. They're just educated guesses that tend to come true because the patterns are there and they behave the same way all the time. So, look, I'll pray for Joe Biden because I don't want to see anybody murdered. I don't want to see anybody dead. But I definitely, from the standpoint of what his odds are of making it, through the end of the year, forget the presidency, I got to tell you, my money, if I'm using my money to bet, it ain't on him making it. I absolutely think he's now irrelevant. He's irrelevant and he's a liability because he's got dementia and he continually, even while he was in office, says the quiet part out loud. And if somebody gets a hold of this guy and gets a statement from him or two statements or, God forbid, an entire interview from him, the whole thing could get blown up. So there's no doubt in my mind that he is in jeopardy. And somebody needs to be, Secret Service need to be on their toes with this guy, even though it's likely not going to be a shooter. It's likely not going to be a shooter because it's too easy to sell the story that he passed to natural causes. It's just way too easy to do that. And I think that that's exactly where this is headed. But we'll see. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know. That's my take. That's my perspective on this, and I'm sticking to it until somebody, until I start seeing some evidence that gives me confidence that he's kicking, that he's alive and kicking and doing well. A recording sounding phone call does not give me confidence. I watch these AI. We all watch these AI videos every day. If we have that, trust me, the CIA or Deep State are not using ChatGPT. Right? They're not using ChatGPT. Trust me when I tell you that. Whatever it is that they have in their possession with respect to AI is far more advanced than anything the public is going to see. Maybe Elon Musk has access to somebody like that, has access to something, on their level, but no regular citizen does. That I could tell you for 100% fact. That goes for every technology that's ever been released. They have a more advanced version than we will ever see. Until they have a much more advanced version than that, then we can see the advanced version that they have now. That's how it's always been with tech. It's been a little bit looser with the innovations because they're coming out so quickly. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, but AI is not one of those things. AI doesn't fly under the radar. They've been on top of this from the day it was deemed even possible to do. So the fact that they can't dummy a video or do some kind of, some kind of other stuff, it's not, it's just not, there's no way. Everything we've seen of Biden right now is something that could be done through AI. That's the reality. So hold on one second, folks. All right, my man Mike Arnold was signal messaging me on which is a secure messaging app that the rebels use to to communicate. But let me get into the second portion of what I wanted to talk about today, because for obvious reasons, for the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've been completely inundated with the assassination attempt, with Biden dropping out and the Secret Service and how they screwed this up and how this was a coup and how nothing made sense and blah, 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 blah. And all of that, by the way, is completely relevant. I'm going to continue to have these conversations regardless, because they're very important. That this is different than the noise that was going on before, that I used to talk about not wanting to discuss on the podcast. Things, Joe Biden said this, the Senate is trying to pass a bill that says this, the WEF has got this treaty that, that annual thing that comes up, like all that stuff, like it's all noise to me. Because in the end, regardless of what happens with the WEF and regardless of what happens with Biden, and regardless of what happens with Kamala or whatever other doo-doo they put up, to cover for her, whatever it may be, it's all not relevant. And I tell you why. Because none of it, they are all symptoms of a problem that we all already know exists. For example, we know for a fact the CCP has been waging war against the United States for the last 70 years or so, in quest to their 100-year war, okay? There's about 25 years left on that commitment. It would be 2049 to complete the 100 years, okay? We know that they have utilized organizations, first, like the Soviets, the governments, right? They sat and watched the governments do their ideological subversion, watched as the Soviet Union fell, came to the United States for protection against the Soviet Union, the whole nine. They've been playing this game for so long. The long game, Xi Jinping is not relevant. There'll be another leader. He's just the most aggressive of the bunch. But to them, he's not that relevant. They're all just there for the party. All right, the UN, obviously the CCP is control of the UN. If you're able to tell the UN to announce to the WHO, to announce to the world that a virus that is clearly transmissible to humans is not, and have the WHO go out and make that statement without saying China told us so, like make that statement as if it's coming from them, then they're owned. And if they own the WHO, that means they own the WEF and they own the UN. All right. This globalist movement is being this, and now the China running it all is my take. Okay, the Rothschilds don't have an army, so as much money as they have, in the end, if somebody with an army turns around and tells the Rothschilds, "I ain't paying you," guess what? Rothschilds ain't getting paid. They could try and buy an army, but that ain't going to work out. Now, in the end, and that's not to say the Rothschilds aren't incredibly powerful. They are. But money only gets you so far. But we know that these globalists are out there. Wherever your rabbit holes lead you to how it ties together. None of us are invited to Bilderberg meetings. None of us get to sit in the cafes and restaurants during the WEF. None of us get to do these things to get the true, details down on it. But we do know one thing. We know that there are globalists in this world, very powerful individuals, who have signed on multiple nations' leaders, okay, and have dubious agendas. Like we know that's where all of this, DEI comes from. We know it's clearly tied to Marxism. They don't even change the terminology. They got these kids calling each other comrades, and I mean they're not even. They're so sure about the ideological subversion, they don't even care that they do it in the open. So we know that that's the existential threat to the world. And more importantly, in this case, to the United States, because when I say that, it's not because, obviously someone in another country is going to think, well, it's more important in England, but it's not. Because if England falls, the world doesn't fall. And by the way, England, I think, will be one of the last, if there is a fall. England would be one of the last, in my opinion, just based on their history. America and England have very much in common in this way. But the fact of the matter is, if America falls, the entire world falls. And so then it becomes, and this is why I have so many international followers, because they understand this. They understand when they heard about Article 5, they were like, what? You could do what? And frankly, everyone that hears it for the first time reacts that way, including American citizens, unfortunately, including state legislators. All right. And so that's why this is so important, because the point that I'm trying to make is that regardless of where this goes, regardless of what happens, Trump gets in, doesn't get in, Kamala, somebody else, Newsom. Obviously, we all want Trump to get elected, and I think he will, and we all want certain things to happen from a presidential standpoint. However, there's a limit to what a president can do. So do we need Trump in office? Absolutely. Because there are things that he can do immediately that he will do, I believe, without a doubt, like secure the border, like declare China the enemy, right? End the Ukraine war and that spending. There are things that he can do immediately. Things that he cannot do, unfortunately, or Congress or anyone. Well, they could do, but won't. We all know that they won't. Is save the republic. And because what it requires to save the republic, only the people can do directly. The federal government is far too broken to do it itself. We cannot elect our way out of the tyranny that we're in. And even if the government turned around and suddenly stopped becoming tyrannical, it still would not give up its power of the purse. It would not allow for any restrictions on that power. It would not impose term limits on itself. It would not, it would not do away with regulatory agencies and their ability to write laws without anybody accountable to the people. Those types of things, they would not vote for anything that would restrict, tax revenue or restrict their ability to collect it, right? These things would just never happen. But yet these are the things, if we don't get spending under control, if it doesn't get under control, and Trump will not get it under control. I know he said that in one of his speeches, and I just giggled. He's not going to get it under control. He doesn't have the power to get it under control, and frankly, there's enough shit going wrong for him to work on. He ain't going to have the time to even deal with it anyway. However, we can. So I want people to remain focused on the fact, J.D. Vance, who is a staunch Article 5 supporter. He's a signed and true Article 5 supporter. He needs to be our ally here. Because what I need from him, what we need from him, what all the grassroots, the millions of grassroots around the country who have been at this for longer than even I have, okay, what we need is for J.D. Vance to get on a podium and really talk about this and give a speech along the lines of, President Trump and myself are going to do everything that we possibly can to save this republic, and we need you to do everything you possibly can to save this republic. And if he comes out and says that and then breaks down Article 5 and then breaks down the fact that they need to be at their local legislature, they need not be in Washington. That is not where we need the people gathered. We need them gathered at their own state assemblies. That's where we need them gathered. And that's how we take this country back. And a message coming from someone like that, and Lord willing, he's able to get that message through to Donald Trump. Donald Trump will be far longer remembered for getting that done, even though he doesn't get involvement in the process, for motivating the people of this nation to get that done, and he will get credit for that. Because it will be obvious. They've been at this now. We've been at this now. It's been 10 years. I've been on this for about 3. And the fact of the matter is 19 states are on board, but this is not easy. It is not easy to amend the Constitution of the United States. But the fact of the matter is, we've got the topics, right? We've got the topics. The topics are, I know them, but I'm waiting for the graphic to catch up with me. The topics are term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. Folks, no matter what happens, whether Biden disappears, passes, lives, Trump gets elected, doesn't get elected, anything that happens, this is still the option that needs to get. This is still the item, the line item that's going to save the republic. This is it. And I don't want to, it's the reason that I keep this channel going. It is, you've got people out there saying, oh, you don't want to open up the Constitution. It's going to get crazy. Open up the Constitution and Soros is going to rewrite it. Like all this crazy stuff comes out because there are active forces out there trying to portray this crazy stuff as real. So it does require some education. You do need to read into this and look at both sides and say, okay, now I'm going to go research like this is the most dangerous thing in the world. And then I'm going to go research like this is the actual solution that's going to save this country. And when you research both sides with that frame of mind, you are going to walk away. 100% of people do. You're going to walk away saying, wow, like a light will have gone on. Like this is the way. Because it's not just about term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. Right? Most states already have term limits, so that would likely, when proposed, if that comes out of convention, and it will, that will likely become a constitutional amendment. A balanced budget amendment, most states have that anyway. So that will likely get ratified as a constitutional amendment. Amendments on government overreach, I believe regulatory agencies will get put in check by constitutional amendment because enough states have to deal with them in negative ways and understand that they're just usurping the power of the states. Now, beyond that, I would like to see things like, I think a single subject amendment has a good shot where they can't write omnibus bills. Each bill has to be only items in a bill have to be germane to the main topic of the bill, right? So you can't put in the lizards and treadmills and all that stuff, which adds up to freaking hundreds of billions of dollars, by the way. When you take all these little programs and put them together. But the fact of the matter is they won't be able to do that anymore. So things like that, I think, will get ratified. However, let's say almost nothing. Let's say only term limits gets ratified, and they can't even agree on a balanced budget amendment. It doesn't even matter because what we need right now is to complete this process and demonstrate for all the fear-mongering and all the nonsense. Like, it needs to just be a process that gets brought up, everybody understands it, and then we decide where we're going to go with it. Right now, this gets brought up to a state legislature, and it's the same questions coming from the legislatures, every single one. Same questions. Because they have no idea how it works. They have and so they're open to any type of nonsense. And believe me, when John Birch, JBS, shows up to a freaking state legislature along with these Soros groups and the League for Women Voters and all of these other folks show up to a state legislature with all this paperwork to show them that they're going to destroy the country if they do it, they believe it. They believe it. And even the states of the 19 that are on, when you see them come on board, there's always a sponsor who was against it in the past, but read his way into being for it because they then understood it. And so the first step is for us to understand it. And that is one of the reasons that is the reason I do this. Obviously, topics come up like assassination of the president that are very relevant, and I can't just ignore the fact that it happened. Or the WEF, and all, like I've done plenty of videos on them as well. So, those things happen, and I'm not trying to ignore them, but what I am saying is, if we really want to brush Marxism out for good, it is absolutely you got to go for the big stuff. It's absolutely essential for Marxism to function that there be an enormous centralized government that is all powerful. And thanks to our SCOTUS, over a century of small decisions, big decisions, etc. They have given just carte blanche power to the federal government to the point where it's accumulated into the mess that we see now. And no one court will take the blame for all of it, because there were many courts over that century that passed individual rules that they thought there's only one way to undo that and clarify that. And that's through constitutional amendment. When the progressives wanted income tax because they wanted to control the nation's wealth, when they wanted that, and they wanted to control the nation's wealth, and when they created the Fed, they wanted to be able to pay the interest on the money that they're no longer printing. And when that happened, okay, when decades went by of them getting shot down because income tax was forever unconstitutional, until they finally got a constitutional amendment to get income tax put in. And it's done so much damage to this country and given so much control to the federal government that it's just immeasurable. Well, they did that amendment because the courts were making decisions that they didn't like. And so Woodrow Wilson, that dirty human being, worst president, I don't care, even Biden with dementia, did not do more damage to this country than Woodrow Wilson did. Because Woodrow Wilson's damage has now lasted some, 100 years? So 100 years from now, if the damage Biden has done is still affecting the country, then you can start arguing with me that he was a worse president than Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson led the charge for 2 constitutional amendments to be passed, as well as creating the Fed, all of which happened in the same year, 1913. They passed income tax. They stripped our Senate of their power. Well, the Senate... Correction. They stripped our state legislature of the power to appoint senators, which the state legislatures did on their own because they have to ratify it. But all of this happened under Woodrow Wilson. And then the same year that they got the income tax, in the dead of night, on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, without a full Congress present, they created the Fed. None of this was an accident. And it was all done by constitutional amendment. It can only be undone by constitutional amendment. This is how we save the republic, folks. This is it. Now, for those that don't know what Article 5 is or how it works, you're like, what's this all about amendments? I mean, I know Article 5 is the part of the Constitution that talks about amendments, but how does this Convention of States work? Because the Constitution is kind of vague on the process. And yes, the Constitution is vague on the process for one reason and one reason only, is that the federal government doesn't control the process. The process of calling a convention and selecting delegates, these are all things that states do normally, for any variety of reasons. And each state, being sovereign, has the right to choose its own process for how it's going to choose its delegates. It chooses its own process for how it's going to write up its resolution. The topics do need to be the same for all the resolutions, all the petitions to government for a convention, but that's it. You know, some states are going to punish their delegates if they go off topic. Other states are saying, we don't need to because we're just not going to ratify it. There's all kinds of, each state is doing its own thing. But the fact of the matter is the states have that power, and it's only the legislatures, the federal government, aside from actually calling the convention once it receives, because when the states send the petitions, it takes 2/3 of the states, that's 34. So 34 states need to send a petition to the government, to the U.S. Congress, saying that they're calling for a convention. At which point Congress shall, is how it's written in the Constitution, Congress shall call the convention. After that, Congress is out. Convention gets called, delegate selection belongs to state legislatures. How many delegates? That's state legislatures. What are the topics? That's state legislatures. It's all state. They go in convention, they come out with their proposals. Who ratifies it? State legislatures. And you say, well, why? Why don't governors have a say? Because state legislatures are the closest to the people. There is a person who represents you that only represents maybe in a really large state, maybe a few 100,000 people. In most states, it's around 100,000. Some states, some districts are as small as 3,000 or 10,000. The point is, these elections can be swayed by 500 votes, 1,000 votes. Like it doesn't take a massive movement to dump your state legislator in your district. It doesn't. And more importantly, these people are accessible. You can go, if you have a grievance, you're not supposed to allow this president, he's in line with my grievance, so I'm going to vote for him. That's not going to help you. It's your state legislator that's going to help you. And when it comes to dealing with the federal government, it's the state legislatures that have the power. And it's a new mindset for Americans to think this way. But there's a reason for that, is because the mindset that's been given to you, and it has been given to you. It's been given to you by example all around you, by, just like people calling, even Trump, they all call this a democracy. And they confuse the fact that of what the difference is in a type of democracy and being an actual democracy. And they misuse the word all the freaking time. That's by design. Civics was taken out of the classroom. That's what inspired me to make this shirt. Civics was taken out of the classroom in the late 60s, and there was a design reason for that. A designed reason for that. The word democracy is written nowhere in any founding document anywhere. There's a reason for that. This nation, this republic, was designed to work from the ground up, and we still have the power. It's just a matter of, people are like, oh, we don't have the power. There's George Soros and Klaus Schwab and all these other globalists have them. No, they don't. And they know that they don't. They have the power as long as you stay ignorant and don't do anything. As long as you can sit there and you think on TikTok, you think all these things saying, the government's so corrupt, this and that, whatever. You have no power. We have no power. You think all those videos are an accident? The CCP loves those videos. They pump them out all the time. Nothing gets out of TikTok without their approval. And the reality is they love those videos. They love them. They want you to believe that more than anything in the world. But it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. And the day that we all come together and start focusing on stuff like this and realize that we do have the power, just imagine a world after a convention is called. So all the fearmongers are gone now. We called a convention, whatever got ratified, whatever didn't. But all they're going to open it up to everything, they're going to rewrite the whole concept. All those nuts, okay? All those nuts and all those good people who fell for what the nuts were selling, all right, will no longer have a case. They will now have to acknowledge what we all knew all along, is that this is a legitimate process and it works. But once that happens, the entire relationship between the people and the country will be changed for the better for centuries. Until they can re-educate us and convince us we don't have that power anymore. Which is not off the table, as we now know. But there's no way for the next 100 years that they're going to be able to convince people that we don't have that power, because we will, and we will have demonstrated it, and it will be obvious. And it matters. And it matters. And what can you do? Sorry, I have to look away because I'm checking various items here to try and keep myself. Every once in a while, I got to check to make sure that everything is still up and running and moving properly, or it ends up making it look like, I'd be talking to myself for an hour and a half, and nobody says, hey, you're talking to yourself, because they don't know. All right. But what can you do? You can start by educating yourself. Right? Bring a friend to one of these broadcasts. Like I said, I will always stop in the middle of the broadcast if there's an Article 5 question. It is my passion to help people understand this. It is my passion to make sure that people know how to address it and how to address people. Like if you come at me on a live event and try to tell me it's going to open up the constitutional, I'm going to start dropping fact bombs on you like crazy. And it'll be a good experience because you can go and validate those things and start to realize like, oh, shoot, this does make sense. This is right. This is, etc. And really start to pick up the pace. And then you go to conventionestates.com. You can also go to the patriotthinktank.com. I have a link to the petition right on the cover, but it's not like some BS petition. Like this thing is district specific. Like they're going to tell you who your local legislator is, and they're going to send a letter on your behalf to let them know that you signed the petition for Convention of States. And I can tell you that for many of these state legislators, 100, 200 petitions that come in, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And then click on volunteer. It doesn't mean you have to like take hours out of your month. Literally, there's a way to volunteer and just be a social media warrior and just get online and do what you're already doing. Just start, preach, brother, preach, right? Preach that civics. And educate, they'll educate you so that you can educate others. Right? There's a ton of good videos on Constitution and why it was written, what Article 5 is, why it's that way, what the precedent is. There are books I can refer to you, like Nadelson's The Law of Article 5, I believe it is. There are a lot of good informational material out there that you could be using to educate yourself on this, and then take that education and start educating others. But it all starts there. It all starts there. So I hope to God, for the sake of this republic, that you will heed the word. I will be on probably Sunday again, and we'll see what kind of crazy crap goes on this weekend. But I'll be on probably Sunday again, mid-afternoon, starting to become a thing for me, and I can take this conversation on longer then, and we can, you can bring somebody on and get them involved in the conversation, have them ask questions live. I'd be more than happy to engage, and we can take it that way. But back to my first comment, I hope from the standpoint of Joe Biden that, that things, like I said, I don't want to see him. I don't like the guy. I don't like what he stands for. I can't stand him, to be honest with you, but in the end, I don't want to see him murdered. I don't want to see anybody murdered. It's not okay, right? So try to be around on Sunday, folks. Look out for it. And if you hit follow, especially if you're on Facebook or one of those, Facebook, because YouTube, I don't even really focus. If you're following me on YouTube, hit the follow and get all alerts, because there ain't no shot. If you leave it up to YouTube to get it, you will get 0 alerts. All right. So, it's like a true unicorn when an alert goes out there. Facebook isn't much different. So Facebook has the @followers feature. So even though I have some 18,000 followers, if I hit @followers, which is supposed to alert all your followers, I'll get like maybe 80 or 90 that get an alert, which is better than the 0 they used to give me. So I'm try to be grateful and know, count my blessings. But Rumble, I think, is pretty good about the alerts. So you just follow there, you should be okay. But definitely click that, because I'm going to be testing out some different times. I'm getting some data in about when my followers are actually on, because I come on late all the time because I don't get off work till 5:30 in specific time. So the entire East Coast is waiting until 8:30, and then it's like, 8:30 at night. It's doable, but it's not, it's not the optimal time for people to be on social media. So I continue the fight and continue yourself, continue the education. Go to conventionestates.com, click the link, and try to volunteer. Someone's going to reach out to you from your district, and they'll tell you what they could use help with. Maybe you got some money you could donate. Maybe you don't have any money, but you got some time you can donate. Maybe you don't have any money or time, but you got a skill that you could donate. Like there's always something, right? There's always something, right? 15 minutes a month from 15 million people, it's a lot of minutes, right? So keep it that way. Until then, folks, I'll see you. Let's hope nothing crazy happens in the next few days, but I got a feeling on Sunday I'm going to be coming on talking about something nuts. All right, folks, I'm out.
And like that.
That wasn't okay. That thing sputtered and went crazy. Let's try this.
And like that,
Much better.
he's gone.